How's it going, guys and geeks? Welcome back to the Geekritique show. I'm Dakota.
I'm Jen.
And today we're going to be talking all about the Doctor Who Thin Ice audio drama that was produced by Big Finish, based on the original script by Mark Platt for Series 27 of Doctor Who. That episode would have been called Ice Time if that had actually been filmed for Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Aldred. But it's good to know that Sophie Aldred and Sylvester McCoy did reprise their roles in this audio drama for us to actually... What?
We're not talking about the same Thin Ice.
I'm just kidding, guys. Let's get right into it. The episode Thin Ice came out this past weekend. Look at that face. Look at that face.
Help me. Just help me.
What were your thoughts, Jen, coming out of it? What did you like? What did you not like?
I really liked Bill. I'm just saying.
Every episode, it's like you're learning more about her character because of her interaction with the Doctor. And I feel more so than any other companion that we've had in recent memory because, again, everything that she does is realistic. It's a realistic reaction to everything, which makes it so much more fresh than anything else that we've seen, especially in Moffat Who, because it's all been kind of fairy tale up until this point. We now have a companion that is like down to earth, and she understands that everything isn't as easy as a show like Doctor Who might make it out to be. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and I like that she questions the Doctor, which, you know, a lot of the companions do. They always kind of are like, who are you? Like, what's this all about? What's going on here? Like, you know, are you a good guy or are you a bad guy? The way that she does it, I think, is really interesting. And the way that the Doctor handles her is very cool. Bad things happen in life. You just have to suck it up and keep doing what you can to help others. And I thought that was a really cool theme. Very timely, you know, in the time of, like, social justice warriors that want to finger point and pick out every little thing going on that other people say and do wrong. You're not helping. Helping is pitching in a hand and doing for others so that more bad things can be prevented.
Right. It's interesting. The Doctor actually says something that is quite poignant to that idea of, like, social justice warriors not doing anything by yelling. A number of times there in this episode there's the theme of, like, her, like, yelling for help, and that doesn't help in the end of things. And at one point the Doctor actually goes in and says, it's not me you're mad at, when she's berating him on whether or not he has ever seen anyone die, and how many people has he seen die, and then how many have you actually killed. You know, these are very real questions you have to ask someone who's so alien and
so powerful, honestly.
Yeah, at the end of the day, he's a force of nature.
And I think that's just such an interesting way to put it. It's not me you're mad at.
Right.
I feel like a lot of times people do just kind of find the first person that they can point a finger at and just say, get mad at them. You're the problem. Not just, like, on the internet, but that's kind of more of what I'm thinking of, but even in, like, our daily lives, you have a bad day, you take it out on the person nearby, or, you know, someone that's driving, you know, on the road, your road rage, you take it out on that person. And it's such an issue that I feel like the world has today, and it's so frustrating to see people just getting mad at the wrong person. So someone phrased a joke wrong on the internet, and everyone's mad at them because racism is bad, or this issue is bad, or, you know, it goes against feminism, or, you know, whatever. And it's like, no, it's not this stupid person making a joke you're mad at. It's humanity that you're angry with as a whole, and society, and you have issues. But how is yelling at some random person and fighting, you know, in the comment section of a YouTube channel or on Twitter, how is that going to fix anything going on in the world? Because that episode could have ended right there, where she's like, well, you didn't save that little boy, I'm done. And you suck, Doctor, and because you can't save this single person, I'm going home, take me home. That would have been the end of the episode, that would have been the end of everything.
TARDIS probably wouldn't have allowed her to go home, though. Probably was stuck there until they fixed the issue.
Yeah, that's true. She probably wouldn't have gotten that far. But you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the end of the problem. When people just point the finger at the nearest person they're angry with, nothing's getting resolved. You're just adding to the rage that's accumulating on Earth. So I thought that was an interesting point. I mean, Dakota and I were kind of talking, you know, like, immediately after we watched the episode about how some of the viewpoints of the person who's writing the episode really shone through heavily. I've always liked how Doctor Who has touched on, you know, themes such as equality and racism and stuff like that in a tactful way, and talked about these issues like in the future and in the past. So I've always enjoyed, you know, and admired how Doctor Who
is able to talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, in such an, like, kind of almost like from an out, you know,
from an outsider's perspective, an objective perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And you're able to kind of look down and see how ridiculous some of the situations that happen on Earth, like racism, it's absolutely ludicrous that, you know, we have these, or in the past, like these viewpoints, or presently these viewpoints are held, you know, even the way that Bill says it, it's melanin.
Yeah.
It's very simple when you get down to the nitty gritty. Like, yes, there's cultural differences and all of that, but to put someone else down literally for a part of their body is absolutely just ridiculous.
Yeah, it is a little crazy.
So when you kind of view it from an outsider's point of view, you see just how crazy that looks and how crazy it is.
Now, there are certain points when the writer shines through the script, and I feel like there was one point that kind of took me out of it a little bit, because it was a point that the Doctor made in an unobjective way. It was no longer objective, rather. Bill looks around in this frost fair in 1814, and she says it's a bit more black than the movies make it out to be. And then the Doctor goes, so was Jesus. History was a whitewash. There are a few ways you can take that, especially the Jesus was black comment. The first thing you think of is this is Doctor Who trying to be sensational. Maybe the creators actually think Jesus was black. And I guess to that, I have to say, well, what is your definition of black? Because if it's someone with any more melanin in their skin than I have, then yes, technically that person would be black. You have more melanin in your skin, you're black. I'm not sure if that's what she's saying. Like, there is more... Because Bill does say, bit more black.
A bit more black than they show in the movies.
So was Jesus.
So I saw online, like, some people weren't crazy about that. But to me, when she said a bit more black, I saw a diverse group of people. So she's saying in general, like, wow, there's more diversity than I was anticipating.
So you're saying, like, Jesus' time period was a bit more black?
No, I think he's just saying, yeah, Jesus is a bit more black. Like, he's not an Aryan prince. I thought
right,
that's how I took
true.
it. Like, because you see all the time pictures of him with, like, blonde hair and blue eyes and perfectly, like, manicured, like, facial hair. It's just like, no, he probably would have had, like, a freaking huge beard or something.
Right, and most likely...
I took it as just slightly more, but I don't think they were saying he was outright black. I think it's just saying, yeah, no, a lot of pictures and stuff that we see from time periods have been made to look whiter.
That's definitely true, and that can't be argued. One thing I would like to make the point of noting is, while this isn't what Jesus looked like, this is what a computer-generated image, based on all the evidence we have of that time period and that area in history, this is what the Jewish people at that time and place looked like for the most part. This is a generalized image, clearly not black as we would call it now, but again, more melanin, and I think that's the point that she was trying to make. Maybe.
But yeah, who knows? What I thought was interesting about that was that, from my point of view, watching the episode, I liked the fact that it was kind of saying, morally, you know, things aren't so black and white, in the sense of, like, you know, she was kind of grilling the Doctor on, like, are you a good person or a bad person? And, you know, they kind of, that's like this thing that was going on, like the Doctor kind of admiring con artists, and, you know, technically that would be, like, not a good thing to do. And I felt like the whole episode was about kind of being balanced and not freaking out, but just doing what you can to make things better.
Right.
So that's why then for me to, like, have this become another issue of black and white, which literally talking about the skin tone, I don't really get it. Like,
yeah.
You know, I don't really see why this is even, like, a big issue. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm too, you know, laid back with stuff like this. But I just hate when it gets down to it. I feel like this episode was directly talking about not being like that, and it turned into something like that. People nitpicking one thing out of the whole episode and being like, this is the problem. Look at, she said this. That's so stupid. That's ridiculous. Blah, blah, blah. I'm offended. And now you're making it another black and white issue. Congratulations. Like, how are we supposed to move past this if every single time color comes up, someone's offended?
It doesn't matter if Jesus is black or white at the end of the day. His message wouldn't be any less profound or important to the billions of people who follow his teachings, so let's just move past that. I actually really, really enjoyed this episode. I think the setting of 1814, the last great frost fair on the Thames River, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I had no idea that was a thing until watching this episode. I'm blown away by it. I was actually doing a whole bunch of research after watching the episode. I actually found that newspaper clipping that Bill found on her phone that quoted that Lord Sutcliffe drowned in a snap thaw. It doesn't actually say any of that, but I did see the actual newspaper heading from February 15th of 1814, and that was pretty cool. Alright, so we spoke a little bit about the themes of the episode. Let's actually get to the thick of it. They're on the Thames River. It's frozen. There's street urchins stealing and pickpocketing. There are people capitalizing on the fair festivities, and, you know, the Doctor's just loving every second of it, eating strange meals, strange fish pies.
Oh, I liked that he had been there before with River. That was one little tidbit cool. We caught.
The Doctor took me ice skating on the River Thames in 1814, the last of the Great Frost Fairs. He got Stevie Wonder to sing for me under London Bridge.
Stevie Wonder sang in 1814?
Yes, he did. But you must never tell him.
One thing that I thought was interesting about, like, when they first get to the fair, they're kind of talking to the guy who makes the fish pies, and the Doctor is, like, itching to learn that coin trick that he does. And I've noticed all throughout this episode, he keeps, like, admiring con artists. Like, several times, let me see, I wrote it down, like, the guy who was doing the fish pie, the kids, and then later on, too, again, when he was talking to the guy who makes the fish pie, and then at the end of the episode, he, like, goes to flip a coin with Nardole. And I thought that was interesting, and it kind of makes me wonder, like, ooh, does the Doctor have something up his sleeve?
Probably.
Because even in the vault, he was saying, Nardole was saying to the person in the vault, what has he told you? So it's like, who is back there? And why do I feel like the Doctor knows exactly what's going on and Nardole has no freaking idea that the Doctor's playing them or something? Yeah. That's just the vibe I got, but like, you know, the first episode, I thought that this wasn't going to be in chronological order, and clearly I was wrong then, so I'm probably wrong now.
And you did mention this earlier, but the fact that this long alien, maybe, fish that's underneath the water is in chains, and that's kind of like a parable to slavery itself. Which was still prevalent at that time period, especially racism, as we saw with Lord Sutcliffe at the end, throwing racist slurs, calling Bill a creature. I wanted to punch the guy, so I was very happy when the Doctor actually went ahead and did it. That was perfect. And I like that it was like right after he had told her like not to act in passion.
Yeah, not to overreact.
Right.
So let's get into it. Basically, they're at the fair, they're enjoying it, they're loving it. They get conned by the fish pie guy, the Doctor steals a fish pie back, and then they see a little boy go out onto the ice, and he, you know, falls through and gets eaten by the monster. Yeah. And he says in front of the other kids at some point, like, he was on the menu. So the Doctor automatically knew, you know, something was down there eating them. Like, it didn't seem to be a question to him, like, as to what was happening. And he didn't really even seem surprised by the little lights underneath the ice. So then after that, which we've already talked about, Bill and the Doctor get into that argument, and he says to her this quote that I thought was really well written.
I'm 2,000 years old, and I've never had the time for the luxury of outrage.
So he's like, let's get into action. We know people are getting eaten. Time is
of the essence.
Time is of the essence, and let's just do this and, you know, find out what's going on and get down to it.
Right.
So he comes up with the plan. He says, we need to get a closer look at it. Plan, let's get eaten. So they suit up.
Which I loved.
Get down.
I loved the old divers suits that they had.
That was so cool.
That was pretty cool.
That was.
I liked how it was realistic that they couldn't talk to each other, so they had to be a little more creative in their communication. They didn't actually get eaten,
which is a relief.
Yeah, that is a relief, actually. What do you think about the special effects with the giant fish?
I liked it because I thought we didn't see too much of it, and we really didn't need to. You know why? Because the whole point was that we weren't supposed to know where the creature comes from because it's irrelevant where it comes from. What's important is what's happening to it. I thought that was a really good point, and then even the doctor's plan of let's get eaten. Let's put ourselves in their shoes so that we can help
in the danger, so that we can actually fix things.
And I thought that was a really, you know, cool plan of the doctors, because really they wouldn't have gotten that far if they hadn't seen what was down there. But they only saw an eye, and they saw the little boy's hat come out of its mouth.
Yeah.
And that told us all that we needed to know in just a couple of seconds, so that we could focus on dialogue and building towards, you know, the climax some more.
Right. So they end up coming back out of the water, realizing and learning who is monopolizing this fish creature. And they're using its excrement to create a fossil, or not a fossil fuel, but a fuel, and it's even suitable for interstellar travel. That's how powerful this fuel is that they are concocting, and we have no idea why they're concocting it. But it does serve to help us understand why those explosions underwater occurred, because that can explode underwater. That was already told to us.
Another thing that I thought was kind of cool is, so when they come out from the water, they see the guy who's fishing for the, you know, fish that he's using in the fish pies. It's a lot of fish in that sentence. And yeah, that's super gross. And, you know, Bill's like, I ate that pie. That's so gross. And not that that's what she said verbatim, but instead of getting mad at him, they got information from him. Then they went over to the dredges. There was another person there that they could have gotten angry with. But instead, they kind of puffed up his pride and got more information out of him. So you see, like, I felt like that was kind of cool, because it's kind of saying you need to be selective who you get angry at, because there's so many hands going into, like, all of the crappy stuff happening in the world today.
Which just goes to show, like, how deeply entrenched this episode is with thematic and moral stances that the author is trying to get the audience engaged in. Like, we can't talk about the plot without going back to the themes.
Yeah,
we're having trouble with that.
Getting tied, because it really is just,
it's not
every step of the way there is some kind of moral or underlying theme, and I thought that was really cool. So yeah, maybe it wasn't so subtle at times, where her opinion could have been a little
less blatant.
Less blatant, yeah, that's a good way to put it. However, I feel like there are a lot of subtleties, if you think about it, that are really cool.
But I want to get into what the Doctor actually says to Lord Sutcliffe. That speech that he gave, that Bill was so infatuated with.
It was great.
We, as the audience, were in a collective state of awe as he was delivering it. Peter was perfect for that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he did a great job.
He's great at stuff like that. But anyway, I wrote it down. It took me forever. It goes, human progress isn't measured by industry. It's measured on the value you place on a life. An unimportant life. A life without privilege. The boy who died on the river. That boy's value is your value. That's what defines an age. That's what defines a species. It's profound and it's simple, but at the same time it's extremely poetic, and I just love it.
And to me, it's so broad. Because that can reflect to, like, our entire society, our entire world, our culture, or even us as individuals. Because growing up, my mom always said, like, you're as good as how you treat the people beneath you. And that could be your, you know, waiter, bank teller, you know, whoever you're dealing with that maybe you're frustrated with. And you see people talking to the ones beneath them so horrifically. And that says so much about them. I think that's a really cool way to put it. But then in society too, on a grander scale, like, how are, you know, the people at the bottom of the food chain treated? And that does say a lot about a society. So I think it's really cool. It's, like you said, it's simple, but poetic, and I really liked that. I did not like, however, that Bill at the end said, like, how old are you? Oh, I want to know how long it takes for me to say a speech like that. Because the same person who wrote the Doctor's speech wrote Bill's line. So you're literally just patting yourself on the back. Wow, congratulations, great speech.
You did write a good speech.
You wrote a great speech. Yeah, but to me it was a little like, okay. We all liked it without Bill saying that. So one little detail that I think we all really need to sit and reflect on is that Sutcliffe thought that the doctor's name was Dr. Disco. Why? Why was he calling himself Dr. Disco? It's so ridiculous. Dr. Disco from whatever club. I was cracking up at that. I just thought, I love it when the doctor's just like messing with people. Just for dumb reasons, because he knows so many. It's like he's making references that only he will get, and that's hilarious. Or I don't know, maybe he's doing it for Bill's sake, but I have a feeling that he would just do that if he was traveling alone anyway.
So after they are captured by Sutcliffe's guards, they are tied up, about to be blown up on the Thames, along with a large majority of the people there to help feed this giant fish that they had chained up.
And one thing that I think is important to mention is that Sutcliffe's family has owned that fish for generations, and it's what's powering his mills. And the way that he rationalized things was like, if I don't have this fish's fuel, my men will have to look for coal, and plenty of people die in coal mines. So what difference does it make if the men in my coal mines die or the men out there die? And it kind of had a message of like, I'm protecting my own. But it's kind of placing the value of your people's lives higher than others. And why is that? Is it because they pay to you, so they're more valuable to you because you're directly profiting off of them? Like, how does that work exactly? You know, what determines the value of a human life? And I think that's kind of what the doctor was saying. The
doctor gives Bill the choice to either free the fish or not to. I like that Bill was confused by this question. Like, why would we free it? It's already killed so many.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too, because she says, like, what if we free it and it eats half of London? And the doctor kind of goes on to say, if your future is built on the suffering of that creature, what's your future worth? And I feel like any time any country has owned slaves or people have owned slaves, they've had that thought in their mind. Like, well, what happens if we just... You can't just let something that you've owned roam the streets, because it might come back to bite you and it might be angry with you.
Right.
And that's kind of what the doctor's saying, like, because then it doesn't end if you're too afraid to let something go. And I'm sure, like, you know, American slave owners had that same thought, like, we can't just let the slaves go, because what if they come back and hurt us? Our society wouldn't be worth anything if we hadn't made that decision. I thought that was really interesting, because he kind of put Bill almost in the shoes of a slave owner, which I thought was really well done and well written. Not to say that we should be empathizing with slave owners, but to say just how wrong that is and how stupid their fears are, because you shouldn't have owned them to begin with. You can't just own someone else because you have no right to do that. So you shouldn't be afraid when you let it go, because that's what you're supposed to do. That's what you have to do in order to move forward.
So I think it's impossible to talk about this episode without just getting into all the themes. Like, we've talked about this from the moment we started till now. Themes are very important to this episode, and I think they came out very strong. Sometimes too strong, sometimes just right, and I think it's worth discussing in a forum like this. So I'm leaving it to you guys. What do you guys think? Please, no hate. We're just trying to dissect this the best way we know how, by talking about what we love, and that's Doctor Who. Next week's episode, Knock Knock. We're looking forward to that very much, obviously. Hopefully we find out what's behind that vault. What do you guys think it is? Again, no spoilers if you know. Thank you guys for watching. If you've gotten this far, what should the keyword be?
There's always a bigger fish.
The keyword this week is there's always a bigger fish.
There's always a bigger fish!
Thanks guys. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. If you don't already follow us, perhaps do that.
Do it.
Because we're going to be doing this every week. Alright guys, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.